The threshold moment. 5 Jungian revelations that only make sense when you're ready. You didn't randomly click on this video. According to Carl Jung, you're here because something deeper, something in your unconscious, recognized exactly what you need to hear right now. He called this phenomenon synchronicity, a meaningful coincidence that appears random on the surface, but serves a precise, essential psychological purpose. The fact that you're watching this now means you've reached what Jung called the threshold moment, the precise point where your psyche is finally ready for truths it previously had to vehemently resist or couldn't safely integrate. Today, I'm sharing Jung's 5 profound revelations that only make sense when you've reached this internal readiness. These are insights about your current spiritual crisis that explain why everything feels like it's collapsing, and why that collapse is precisely what needs to happen. Here's what Jung fundamentally understood about psychological timing. Deep truths can never be forced into consciousness. They emerge only when the psyche is prepared to integrate them, when the old structures are weak enough to allow the new to crystallize. If you are here right now, it means you've reached what Jung called sufficient desperation. The point where your old ways of coping, believing, and living have failed so completely that new, necessary ways can finally emerge. Your presence here is not accident. It is answer. Let's start with why you're experiencing this crisis at this precise moment. Revelation 1. Your suffering has reached critical mass. Jung discovered that you are watching this because your suffering has reached what he called the transformational threshold. This is the precise point where your pain has become unbearable enough to force change, but is not yet so overwhelming that it destroys your capacity for reorganization. This is not random timing. Your unconscious, yourself, has been meticulously calculating when you would be ready. And that moment, undeniably, is now. The intense suffering you're experiencing isn't punishment, it's precision medicine, administered by your own wise unconscious. Here's the mechanism of this critical mass. For months, maybe even years, you've been tolerating an increasing psychological burden. The meaninglessness has been building. The sense of being lost has been deepening. The feeling that's previously resisted with every fiber of their being. This critical mass manifests in specific, inescapable ways that you are likely feeling. Deprived of pretense. You can no longer pretend things are fine. The act of pretense has become more painfully exhausting than admitting the raw, devastating truth. Porn of comfort. You can't genuinely return to old escapes or comforts, alcohol, excessive work, distraction, or superficial relationships. They have stopped providing even temporary, convincing relief. Smash the unraveling of belief. You can't maintain former foundational beliefs about life, career, or identity. They have ruthlessly revealed themselves as comforting but destructive lies. Every escape route you try has been systematically closed off by your own psyche. What Jung discovered is that this timing isn't arbitrary. Your unconscious has been rigorously preparing you for this exact moment through what he called incremental dissolution. Each disappointment slightly weakened an ego structure. Each failure dissolved another foundational illusion. Each loss removed another false emotional support. You have been unknowingly preparing for this moment of profound readiness for years. The reason you're here now specifically is because you've reached optimal desperation. You are desperate enough to willingly release old patterns, but not so desperate that you fragment into deeper, chronic unconsciousness. This is a very narrow window. Too early, and you would reject these truths as frightening noise. Too late, and you might have collapsed into complete inertia. The fact that you're here means you've hit the exact point of readiness. This critical mass of suffering serves the awakening function. It makes you psychologically available to truths you'd normally reject. It dissolves defenses that would typically block genuine insight. It creates what Jung called desperate openness, a profound willingness to consider anything that might finally end the agonizing pain. This message finding you now isn't coincidence but psychic timing.
your unconscious guiding you to exactly what you need, exactly when you can receive and use it. Revelation 2. You're in the void between deaths and births. You are finding this message now because you are in what Jung called the sacred void, the terrifying, groundless space where your old constructed self has died, but your new, authentic self hasn't yet been born.
Authentic structure of the self hasn't formed yet. You are psychologically homeless, identityless, and utterly groundless. Jung discovered this void is where all transformation is silently gestated. But most people flee it too quickly, never allowing the unprecedented new form to emerge. Jung wrote, "Between the death of the old and the birth of the new lies a void that feels like annihilation. But this void is the womb of becoming. Those who can tolerate it birth their true self." This void state has specific, agonizing characteristics you are probably experiencing. Flushing active emptiness. You feel empty, but it's different from flat clinical depression. It is an active emptiness, charged with an intense, often terrifying possibility. Nemesian paralysis. You can't genuinely make decisions because the one who used to decide, the old ego, no longer exists. Sexism. You have no motivation. You have no motivation because the old external sources of drive, approval, achievement, status have died. No experience. You feel like you are nobody. Not low self-esteem, but a literal, painful experience of no self. What makes this void so crucial is that it cannot be rushed or filled artificially. Jung observed that people desperately try to escape through new dramatic relationships, rushed spiritual practices, or instant external life changes. But these are what he called premature births, creating a new, fragile identity before the old one has fully dissolved. This guarantees a rapid, painful return to old, destructive patterns. This message is finding you precisely now because you need to know that this emptiness is sacred, not pathological. You need confirmation that feeling like nothing is the precursor to becoming everything. You need explicit permission to stay in the void rather than frantically trying to escape it before it completes its necessary work. Revelation 3. Your specific wound is your precise medicine. You are receiving this message now because Jung discovered medicine principle means that whatever you are experiencing right now is exactly what you need for this moment. If you're facing abandonment, it's because your rigid attachment patterns need dissolution. Hezbollah, you're experiencing meaninglessness. It's because your external meaning-making structures need to be rebuilt internally. If you're feeling isolation, it's because your false, superficial connections need severing. The precision is remarkable. What makes this revelation crucial now is that you are probably asking, why this specific suffering? Jung discovered that your psyche chose this particular form because it is the only one that could break through your specific, personalized defenses. A different pain wouldn't reach you. A gentler approach wouldn't penetrate. Your suffering is customized to your exact pattern of resistance. This message arrives now because you're at the recognition point, ready to see suffering as medicine rather than punishment. This crucial shift in perception changes everything. Michelle, instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You begin to ask, what is this trying to teach me? Establishes, instead of resisting the pain, you bravely investigate its purpose.
Jung observed that when people recognize their specific wound as their specific medicine, transformation accelerates dramatically. The very thing that was destroying them becomes the exact thing that fundamentally recreates them. Revelation 4. You're not going crazy, you're going sane. This message is finding you now because you urgently need to hear what Jung discovered about your mental state. The disorientation, the alienation, the feeling of losing your mind isn't a mental breakdown. It's what he called the return to sanity. What feels like losing your mind is actually losing the false mind that your society installed in you. You are not going crazy. You are going sane for the first time in your life. Insanity feels like madness when you've been conditioned to accept insanity as normal. Here is the collective problem. The consensus reality you've lived in, the beliefs, values, and perceptions everyone shares, is what Jung called collective insanity normalized. Working yourself to chronic exhaustion is considered normal and responsible.
Conversations. Normal conversations seem strangely insane because you hear the sheer unconsciousness and pretense beneath the words. Courage, unrecognizability. You feel crazy simply because genuine sanity is so rare in the collective that it is utterly unrecognizable. What makes this message crucial now is that you are at the sanity crisis, the point where seeing through the collective delusion becomes so isolating that you are tempted to retreat back into comfortable, accepted madness. You need confirmation that what you're seeing is real, that others have seen it too, and that you are not alone in recognizing the collective delusion. Your disorientation is reorientation. You are not losing touch with reality. You are finally, powerfully touching it for the first time. The timing of receiving this message is your psyche's way of confirming, yes, you are seeing clearly. Yes, it's really this strange. Yes, everyone else is still asleep. Revelation 5. This dark night is actually your dawn. The ultimate reason this message is finding you now is because Jung discovered what you most need to understand at this critical moment. What feels like your darkest final night is actually your dawn beginning. The destruction you're experiencing isn't an ending, but a new, radical beginning. The death you're undergoing isn't final, but absolutely transitional. Jung called this the daybreak that looks like midnight. And you need to hear this now, because you are about to mistake your own birth for your death. Here is the final truth Jung observed. The moment just before a breakthrough feels exactly like a breakdown. The darkness is deepest just before the light. The confusion is greatest just before clarity. The pain peaks just before the inevitable, profound release. You are finding this message because you've reached what Jung called the midnight before dawn, the point where transformation is imminent but looks utterly impossible. Jung wrote, "In the deepest night of the soul, dawn is being born, but the birth of light feels like the death of everything when you've only known the darkness." This disguised dawn manifests in specific, necessary ways. Falling apart to fall together. Everything feels like it's falling apart because it is, but it's fallen on just a little longer. Changes everything. The pain has become so intense it is almost peaceful. You're through resistance into acceptance. The confusion has become so complete it's almost clarity. You've released the need to understand. The emptiness has become so total, it's almost fullness. You are completely ready for the new. This message is designed to catalyze your turn, the point where descent becomes ascent, where darkness becomes light, where death becomes life. The final framework, synchronicity as intervention. Here's why this video found you now. You've reached critical mass suffering that demands transformation. You're in the sacred void between deaths and births. Your specific wound is becoming medicine. You're returning to sanity that feels like madness. And your darkest night is actually your dawn beginning. Jung wrote, "Synchronicity increases at moments of transformation. The individual receives exactly what they need, exactly when they can integrate it. This is not coincidence, but the self orchestrating awakening." These 5 revelations arrive now, because together they form the complete picture you need at this moment, not partial truth, but whole, unflinching clarity. The practical implications are immediate. Stop resisting what's happening. It's precisely calibrated transformation. Stop seeking escape. You are exactly where you need to be. Stipped perception. You are seeing clearly for the first time. Stop fearing the darkness. It is dawn in disguise. The synchronicity of you being here now is your psyche's way of saying, yes, now you are ready.